What's the most fucked up thing you've overheard? You/old figure 922 responded. I'm a wedding videographer. At every wedding I work with a photographer. Sometimes I get along with them, sometimes not. Anyways, I'm working with this photo team at a wedding. We're doing family photos, which is the worst part of the day. It's just a long drawn-out 30 minutes of people not knowing where to stand, yelling for people who have walked away and were supposed to be in the next group photo, dealing with kids, etc. I overhear one of the photographers whisper to the other, sometimes, when I'm having a rough time in family photos, I like to imagine everything everyone says came from behind a closed bedroom door, with a very strong implication of sexual intent. That was years ago, and to this day I can't help but think of it at every wedding. Hearing someone say something like "Grandpa, get back over here. We're not done with you" in the middle, is now the bane of my existence. You/Iron_Annie responded. A few dudes at a bar restaurant sitting at the table behind me. They're having a few beers and laughing and talking about past sexual conquests. One of them launches into a story about how he was in an orgy, and how hot it was having so many bodies tangled together. Then he drops the bomb that his cousin, who was also a dude, was a part of it too, and the other dudes go quiet. One of them asks if he did anything with his cousin, and he denied it hesitantly, then slowly says something along the lines of, well, it was very dark, and all the bodies were slick with sweat, it didn't really matter who touched who or what went where. Judging by the silence from his friends, it very much did matter. He kept trying to justify it, saying how hot it was, but they all made excuses to leave within the next 20 minutes, and he was left alone, drinking at the table, staring at the wall and looking very much like he wished he hadn't told that story. You/Vinvin618 responded. It's not so fucked up, but he'll never forget it. I was walking towards the subway when I saw what looked like a homeless man in a wheelchair, who had no legs, like, just torso, going alongside a very tall man in a very nice suit, coming towards me. As I passed the two men, the one in the wheelchair said, "So the blind chick was grabbing my balls." That's all I heard from their conversation. I wish I didn't have anywhere to be, otherwise I would have followed them to hear the rest of this story. So the blind chick was grabbing my balls. I truly hope those words echo in my head when I am an old man, taking his final breaths on his deathbed. You/Idon_Ryan_Vane responded. I overheard a guy in my school, whom I didn't know because he was 2 years younger than me, telling someone over the phone that he didn't want to live anymore. He was so tired of being lonely all the time and getting bullied day in, day out. His crying pierced my soul. I was really popular at that time, had a lot of friends, was always pulling pranks with them, knew the teachers pretty well. So one day, me and my best friend followed him to the bathroom. This sounds so weird, but we had been observing him and we knew he hid in the toilets during breaks, and we kind of started a conversation on how his shirt was really cool and that we were a fan of the same band as him. And then we invited him to sit with us, and we kept that up until we graduated, and to this day, we're still friends. I regularly checked up on him during the time I knew he was depressed, without ever telling him I had overheard him when he was on the phone. He's doing great now, he's in his second year of music academy. I don't know if we saved his life, but I sure bet we made it a little easier for him. And seriously, he's become one of my best friends. Such a sweet kid then, and still a great guy now. You/Pattimelt responded. I was probably 6 or 7 years old. My parents and I were staying the night at my aunt and uncle's house. They were laying in the guest bed and I was on a pallet on the floor of the same room trying to sleep. After trying to sleep for quite some time one night, I could hear my dad whisper to my mom, "I think he is asleep." A moment later my mom whispered back, "Sexually show me what you used to do," and they began audibly making out, breathing loudly, and quietly moaning. Mind you, I was adopted and they were in their late 60s. I was far too young to be hearing what my dad used to do to my mom. As I laid there uncomfortably listening to the sexual time machine they were going down, my stomach started to turn and I finally cockblocked my dad and belted out, "Dad, my tummy hurts." He took me to the kitchen to get some stomach medicine. You/Neat_neighborhood 297 responded. I used to work with a maintenance tech who had formerly worked in corrections. One day he was outside having a smoke when I came up and lit my own, and he casually continued his conversation with our other tech. He was busy explaining that he worked overnights at the prison, and they were chronically understaffed. So when one night he did his rounds and came upon an inmate being gang raped in his cell, he wasn't allowed to physically intervene because it would be a 5v1 situation. He had to wait for backup, which he knew wouldn't be available because they were understaffed. He told the guys to go easy on him. That still sticks with me. You/Clove responded. This was something my mom overheard, not me, and it's fucked up in the sense that it's so sad, it fucks with my heart every time I think about it. When my dad was sick in the hospital, there was a little boy, maybe 7 years old, a few rooms down from him. It wasn't the ICU, but it also wasn't just for folks who needed one night stay to get better, if that makes sense. I think it was around Christmas time when this happened, so one night my mom was leaving to head home and she overheard the little boy crying with his parents. As she walked by his room, she heard him say, "But mommy, LV been so good this year. Am I in here because Santa thinks I was bad? I'll do better next year, I promise." You/Dominion Knight responded. I was studying with a friend in their dorm in college. It was a suited dorm with a shared bathroom. Heard multiple girls going into the bathroom together frantically and turn the shower on. Voice 1 was sobbing uncontrollably, then I heard her say I told him no, I told him I kept telling him to stop. Voice 2 responded with something along the lines of hey, I know you did, it's going to be okay. Let's wash the blood off first. Fucking horrified me. I will never forget the way her voice and her sobs sounded. I was an RA and was required to report the situation because of my job. I had been through a similar situation, I knew how hard it was and wanted to check on her, but because I was a male I didn't feel my presence would help in the situation. Called a female RA over to come check on her. Felt completely powerless not being able to check on her myself. You/Curiud responded. When I was little my mom and I were at a library next to my dance studio waiting for my dance class. A guy on the phone speaking quietly but not that quiet, was saying so many girls in this area, and they are all wearing little tutus, you really gotta come check them out, they are basically asking for it. My mom, and another woman nearby went to the police station, also next door, to file a report. The police did nothing. A couple months later we found out the police station was covering up crimes of a child predator. It made national news I think, at least regional news. So I lost my trust in police when I was very young. But sadly that wasn't the first time I got a bad feeling about a creepy man. This world sucks. You/Bluechy responded. Woman I worked with thought everyone had already left and I got to listen to the conversation with her and her ex-husband. Man was pleading with her to let him see his teenage daughter more often and she was insisting on more alimony child support. He told her he was already living in a trailer and going in debt to pay for the daughter's private school and couldn't afford more. The woman said he would come up with what she was asking for or she would show the daughter the DNA test that showed she wasn't actually his daughter. I don't think I've ever felt as bad for a guy and as nauseated by a woman so instantly in my life. You/Fresh responded. I grew up Mormon. My mom was talking to her friend who was going through something. I was like 7 and eavesdropping. They didn't know I was there, and I hear the friend say, I just didn't know what else to do but the bishop told me this was happening because I was failing to fill my wifely duties. Every time he touches me I want to die but I don't want him to hurt, friend's daughter. I creeped back to my room at that point. I got older and suspected what she was talking about, and asked my mom a few years ago, my family since left the church. My mom confirmed that friend found out her husband had been raping their 16-year-old daughter for years. That's when the bishop told her because she wasn't having enough sex with the husband, he was naturally seeking gratification with their daughter. Good news, my mom and others supported the friend in leaving the incestuous pedo shortly after I overheard that conversation. The IP a few years later died of a brain tumor. Fuck that guy and fuck the church. You/Deleted responded. Been bartending for years. A high-ranking police officer was in and got drunk, started talking about the governor's, hilarious, codename on the phone which I can't post here for obvious reasons. Referenced it 3 weeks later and he was white as a sheet. Didn't know his higher-ups were with him when I said it, but the bar was empty and one of them hadn't heard the codename, so they called the officer who came up with it to get the full story. Married couple arguing because the wife left town for a night and her husband was caught in the hot tub with 3 prostitutes, chocolate, vanilla, and cinnamon. Yes, they were black, white, and Latina. They were all doing cocaine off the wife's MacBook, all fully nude. His defense was at least you didn't catch me fucking them, he left. I gave the wife a free shot and a hug since she was a regular, she dropped his credit card and tipped an obscene amount after we talked for a bit. A husband and wife were some of the only people left in the bar, just got another round, and the husband says if I get you any drunker, you're going to take this cage off and she said I lost the key 2 weeks ago, this man was shook. I had to walk away on that one. Just remember, if you think the bartender isn't listening, you're underestimating A, how good we are at multitasking, and B, how much we love being a fly on the wall. You/Kamal4K responded. In recent history, Christmas Eve. Mom and I had a spat and I went to spend the holiday with my aunt and uncle, whom I cherish highly. There's a call partway through the day, and given my uncle's hard of hearing, he tends to put things on speakerphone. It's Mom. And I try to ignore it, but she's raving and ranting about how Indians don't have souls in their beady black eyes, and colleges are full of Indian men who beat their white girlfriends, and I kinda tuned out at that point and just asked my aunt if my mom's always going on racist tirades like this. She just silently nodded. You/Black Diamond Roses responded. 1. Overheard my SO, last summer, outside on a call, say to person on phone keep your cool, I'm almost done with this BS relationship, we have to stop communicating on each other's FB post, as soon as her tax refund is deposited we'll, him and his children, be moving down there with you and tell your BF he has to move out. 2. This week, my mother tells someone I have no ambitions, no goals, and I have no desire to better myself. 3. While having an eating disorder, anorexia and bulimia, my weight loss must be drugs. 4. Ex-boyfriend telling his ex-girlfriend he wishes I would commit suicide and end his misery. 5. My sister said she wished my grandmother would hurry up and die. My grandmother always called her out on her shit and being a deadbeat parent. I could go on and on. You/CupcakeSeeker75 responded. Not heard but me being overheard. As a labor and delivery nurse, sometimes we have patients admitted for preterm labor. I was reporting off to the provider of my assigned PT when asked how the patient was doing. I responded that she was doing good but that there had been some irritability all night, but I had just gotten her to use the bathroom and she was doing better. When I came in to report off to the patient later to let her know who was taking over, the patient looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, I was in a bad mood. I tried to be nice last night and this morning." She saw my confusion and continued to say, "I heard you tell the doctor I was irritable last night but I was better this morning." I started to laugh and explained to the patient that I was talking about her uterus and the slight minor cramping she had been doing all night that resolved once she went to the bathroom. I told her that's what we called that type of uterine activity and that she had been a very nice patient. When I reported to the doc, I didn't realize the patient's door was slightly open and she overheard me talking to the doc. From that moment on, I always make sure to either move away from an open door or close it when reporting off to a doc. U/LuckyJeans 456 responded. Not overheard but read. In a massive work meeting at my school, it's in an auditorium. I'm sitting next to this older teacher who has a significant other who is from the country we're working in. He's a bit older, so the text font on his phone was rather large. We were from different countries and neither country a Portuguese-speaking one, but apparently we both speak Reddit. He was texting another woman, not his partner who I know who only speaks English and Chinese. The stuff they were talking about over text was very explicit and I felt bad for his partner because he was obviously cheating on her. I didn't want to read his phone, but from my seat in the auditorium I had to look towards my left to see the stage. He was sat to my left and had his phone screen just beaming right at me. U/deleted responded. When we were foster parents we went to court every 90 days while we had the kids. Foster parents aren't required to do this, but we figured we needed to be the voice of the children since the only focus seemed to be on the drug-addled parents' recovery. We did this for 5 long years for the same 2 boys. One afternoon while waiting on our hearing, a couple was sitting with their lawyer sitting next to us and the conversation went something like this. "Woman, I'm pregnant again. What do I need to do so that the state doesn't take my baby after it's born?" Lawyer, "Finish your program and you'll get your 2 back from foster care and you can have your baby too." Woman, "That's going to take too long. I want them to not be able to touch the baby." Lawyer, "You could give up parental rights to your 2 in the system and they'll get adopted and the state will stop paying attention to you." Woman, "Really? That's all? What do I need to sign?" She had some tears, but was so willing to give away 2 kids so she could keep a 3rd. I don't understand people sometimes. By sheer coincidence, a friend called us that afternoon and said that the mother of their 2 foster kids had just signed away her rights to them and they'd get to adopt. We're pretty sure it was the same couple. U/Mulan Rogue Fairy responded. I was 16 and had been kicked out of my house about a year before. I heard there was a Russian tea house and restaurant in town, so of course went because I desperately missed my grandma's stuffed cabbage. I figured I could get some and a lovely cup of tea. I walked in after finally finding out where this place was at. They didn't advertise or have a phone number listed. Inside was one elderly lady and 3 dudes in suits with a lot of visible tattoos. I still didn't clue in. Nope. My stomach was overriding any of my danger senses. The lady looked at me weird but took my order. About halfway through my meal I overheard the suit guys whispering amongst themselves. I hear. Did you get the money? Then no. He didn't have any, so we broke his hand. It was then I realized I probably should be scooting on out of there. I pretended I didn't hear anything, but damn, it was hard not to get panicky. I was in a Russian mob front. A year later the place was busted by the feds for illegal gambling and gang activities. Kinda sucked cause the food was amazing. I went a few more times before it was shut down but always got my order to go. U/Esobaka responded. Nothing major, but it shook me up at the time. One side of a phone conversation that I overheard at work from a guy in the next cubicle. My husband and I were kinda friends with his family. He was super religious and had a wife who stayed home raising their 3 kids ages 7, 5, and 2 at the time. 2 boys same ages as ours, and the youngest was a girl. I'm sitting at my desk once and hear him screaming and cursing into the phone. What do you mean she barfed in my car? Pull over now and clean it up. No, it can't wait till you get home, there will be stains. I don't care that you got all 3 kids in the car, you pull over and clean it right now. And then he closed with "Love you honey, bye." I was still a newish immigrant then and my reaction was, what the hell do Americans even mean when they say "I'll why?" Can't be the same thing I mean by the word love. U/Leahy on the liquor responded. A few years ago, some friends and I, 4 men and a woman, were out in Vegas, celebrating a buddy's impending marriage. We're out in the Bellagio, around 3 a.m., absolutely hammered, and playing at the cheapest blackjack table we could find. A very large, tall and built, dude, we'll call him Tim, who had obviously been there a long time, struck up a conversation with us after we had been there for a few minutes. We exchanged pleasantries, talked about why we were in Vegas, he was celebrating his divorce, and just had general drunk conversation. Our friend, who we'll call Lisa, came over and joined us after we had been playing for maybe 15 to 20 minutes. She apparently had the hots for him and kept talking to him while the rest of our group playing headed to the bar for more drinks. As we were coming back towards the table with our drinks, we overheard Tim tell Lisa, And if you're a good girl and follow all of my instructions, I'll show you where I buried my wife. We yelled and made a commotion for security. BC, what the actual fuck did he just say? We attempted to run over to her, move her away from the table, and the groom to be stayed by the table and told security what he had said, that we heard, to her. Vegas is a wild place. No idea what happened to the dude, but we weren't gonna stick around to find out what his crazy ass could do. Joe Mama's witness responded. I was once in the London subway. There was a South African white couple talking Afrikaans and assuming nobody could hear. She told him, Dit vol of my ingewand besig is omut t blaas en my kak was bloderig. Jy steek nu it weer daddy ding in my gat nai. For the rest of the world, this is what it meant. It feels like my intestines are about to blow out and my shit was bloody. You never sticking that thing in my ass again. Why would you discuss that on a train anyway in any language? Although my two mates and I laughed so hard till the next stop that they must have known we understood. They were red like tomatoes when we got off. Deleted responded. Not gonna compare too much here, but my mom and her abusive, now ex-boyfriend were drunk and through the walls of the house my mom and I paid halfsies on rent for. I heard her shitbag boyfriend yelling at her. One of the things he said is, and you have a daughter who is fucking you in the ASS right now. And what does my mom say? No. Meekly. We ended that conversation that night. I was fucking raging. I got in the guy's face, and my future husband came out of the bedroom behind me, gently pulled me aside and said to everyone, Are you all fucking children? It is 2:30 a.m. You two are piss drunk, mom and shitbag, get the fuck to bed right now. I had told my mom my absolute disdain for her boyfriend. He had many black marks against him including being a registered sex offender, and he was showing signs of wanting to isolate my mom like abusers do. My mom was buying it and defending him over me. I quit paying half her rent and moved the fuck out only a week later. She broke up with the dickhead in recent years, but I had to find that out from someone else. Originally I had told her when she dumps him we can go back to talking, but she still hasn't tried to reach out since. We're over a decade of no talking, and thinking back, I'm really not sure I want to. That thing I heard through the wall was my breaking point. Dring 157 responded. When I was 12 overheard a girl in my class that I hardly knew tell her friends about how her 16-year-old brother raped their friend anally. The girls laughed about it and called their friend a slut. At the time I didn't realize that they were describing a rape and I thought it was normal for a 12-year-olds to have sex. I'll call the storyteller Sarah and the victim Amber. Amber and Sarah were hanging out at Sarah's house and got in a vicious argument and then a fight. Sarah's brother overheard and came over to break up the fight. He then took Amber to his room to comfort her and keep them separated. Sarah listened at the door as her brother convinced Amber to kiss him and then undressed her. He then told Amber that he didn't have a condom so he'd have to put it in her ass. A few minutes later Sarah saw Amber leave her brother's room and run out of the house without saying a word. The shape 108 responded. I am an IT security consultant so the sheer volume of fucked up emails and chat messages LVE seen while running scans and getting things set up for companies is more than I could ever put in a post. But the actual company I work for has an office, it's just remained closed since COVID. So you only use it if you need it. I was in one day and a coworker was there with her teenage daughter because school was out and since it was empty she just let her camp out in an empty office. Later in the day I heard, through the thin walls, another coworker on a call graphically describing how badly he wanted to fuck the daughter. Despite constantly acknowledging I know she's got to be max 14. I let the mom know and as far as I know she didn't lodge a complaint or anything but they didn't use the office again after that. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Leave your own stories down below, I would love to read them. If you would like to see more videos like this please like and subscribe, it helps me out greatly.